Hey everybody, Sidus here, and just want to let you know before we get into this video that I'm going to be streaming right after it goes up, and at 9 o'clock PST, the day this goes up, I'll be streaming the finale of the League up against Narninian. Spoilers for this episode and for the next one, but I do just want to throw that one out there. Twitch.tv/Cinestream, link in the description. So, this is Game 4 of the Monster Train League Week 2, I guess Speedrun League 2, and I'm in second place with 12 points to Narninian's 19 and Nate's 11 by this point. I got first on the first run, lost the second one outright, and then recovered with a second place on the third run, putting me with 12 league points. So this is another speedrun. I checked my card just to know what I'm getting into. There is a distinct lack of Ember Drain stuff, and also a very energy-dense deck with 2 gem troves. Since I don't have many damage spells, I opt for Chillwind Tethys, which is probably just a generally good choice, considering how strong Chillwind is in general. And take a unit draft trial because I have Pyrostone Housing, and thus I don't have to deal with the only one upgrade slot issue that has plagued the rest of these runs. Though, of course, I'll still have ample opportunity to get screwed over by that during the spell drafts. I've got Offering Token, which, while effective, is incredibly slow, and thus should be used as sparingly as is feasible. Should not have discarded Pack Morsels. I should have discarded the card I literally could not play no matter what I did. But, you know. There's a time to learn, and this is it. So with Pack Morsels, I buff up my Train Steward slightly, which should be enough to take down the first boss, since it has a weak 130 health by base, and that's even more the case after I drain it. You can see we're already getting a little bit slow because I have to make more decisions than I might like. I take Glacial Seal in hopes of getting it an attack upgrade, and thus making it a backline cleaner both with its Frostbite and with its raw attack. Also, I did not realize you could, although I should have realized, that you could get cross-class unit upgrades from this from this mutator. And it kind of bites me there, because I would have taken Nameless Siren if not for the awful Burnout 1 in a setup where I can't burn out anything. I should have taken Large Stone on Crucible Collector here, and that will continually bite me on this seed. Purge out 1 Train Steward, because that's just generally a good idea, and move on to Fight 2. Penitent Prayers is a pretty easy one, and then I add Mark of Invasion to make it more difficult. But that's no worries, because why set up on any other floor when you could just set up on floor 1 instead? It comes loaded with Rage 7, which is not a particularly impressive bonus. It could be good with Lifesteal, if not for the fact that it's just so hard to get Lifesteal on it and then or get Morsels, Gorge, and then use the Lifesteal while it still has Rage. Could have played the Gem Trove there if I were smarter, but I also don't need to, so it's fine. Fight 2 taken care of. I take a Titan's Tooth since I have 3 Offering Tokens in the deck already, and then Holdover Perils of Production to enable any other Ember Drain cards I find. Then I somewhat stupidly take Spell Upgrades. Stygian Banner doesn't offer me anything that fits well in my current floor setup, so I pass. Holdover goes on Gem Trove, because I thought I could drop the cost of it, but I forgot that we're playing with the 1-slot mutator. So unfortunately that goes poorly, as it does when I could have reduced the cost of Drain and boosted the magic power of Ancient Synergy, but chose not to. In the Caverns, I'm offered a Cave of 1,000 Eyes. I get it on the 3rd attempt, and it's a Forgotten Name, which is not too bad, as this setup goes. And we're on to Daedalus. Set up first floor, which is obviously a little dicey, but there's a not too bad a way to salvage it with Ancient Synergy and the Lifesteal. As long as I don't take 20 damage in a single turn, I'll be fine. But wait, Sinus, you might say, the Daedalus bombs deal 20 damage on their own. Yes, they do. This was a mistake. Energy Siphon on Daedalus in case I have a damage spell to use, and I don't think I need another round of Perils of Production, so I pass. I am basically forced to do a bunch of chump blocking here, which is not ideal. Rubble Morsel goes in front, and then Morsel Minor, or Magma Morsel goes in front, and then Morsel Minor makes things safe. And with that, I can safely survive the Daedalus Bomb despite having no target. Oh wait, there's my target removal. Yeah, that didn't go well, did it? But it's pretty clear I've got enough lifesteal for Relentless, what with 6 on the Crucible Collector and its base health of 35. It easily clears the boss. And then we take a look at our rare pack, and Siren Song would potentially have been the better choice in retrospect, but Hoarfrost Effigy, since I have Frostbite Tethys, is an obviously strong pick. Unfortunately, I can't also reduce its cost anymore. Morsel Master with Multi-Strike is pretty strong, and then I take Light of Seraph. Unwise, I have to say. Would not have done this in retrospect. I would definitely have taken energy to make better use of my holdover gem trove. Purge out 2 stewards, though. That's definitely a decision I'll stand by. And then skip both of those. I could have taken Morsel Maker, and probably should have considered that a bit more, considering it offsets the capacity issues. Here's another opportunity at which I could have large stoned my Crucible Collector, but simply chose not to. And that would have been a good retroactive justification for having taken my dubious capacity upgrade. Get another stack of Frostbite on Tethys, and going into Fight 4. Our damage output is fine. Not amazing, but fine. Got some multi-strikers to target with my Rage, my Perils of Production. And I have Space Prism, which lets me do that, which is good, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of flaws with it, and they will all be on display later. So we're defensively very strong and practically invincible in most cases in Relentless, but most cases is not all cases. And there are a couple more issues as well. Hoarfrost Effigy kills the frontliner, although it should have been used on the backliner because of that. And then I have no safe way of saving that without wasting a gem trove, and I don't really feel like doing that because I know that floor is not going to do much because I have the offensive power to easily just smack Pyrolite Harvester around. And Crystalline Seeds is a good choice. It's AoE Frostbite, which helps against the bosses on which I can use Hoarfrost Effigy, so Fel and Seraph will be a lot easier to take down as a result of that pickup. And it's also just a generically good backline removal card. Purge out 2 Frozen Lances, they're probably the weakest card remaining in my deck. And then grab Rules of Containment, which is good both for Frostbite, directly for Hoarfrost Effigy, and just to kill the backlines if I set up on a floor other than the first floor, which conveniently I'm about to do. I opt against the trial, of course. And then just throw Morsel Master and Tethys on floor 2, taking a bit more advantage of Rules of Containment to guarantee that none of those stealthy enemies are ever going to make it up. Ancient Synergy at the bottom floor just for damage. Don't really need to explain myself there, I hope. And now I have Space Prism, which I can use to play yet another Morsel, so we're definitely doing well on lifesteal, I can't deny that much. What I will say is the base health pool of Crucible Collector, because I twice chose not to large stone it, leaves much to be desired. How about that? So I Hoarfrost Effigy these guys, play Packed Morsels to get some more lifesteal. And lifesteal, of course, is also an issue when you're up against an enemy that doesn't get hit. So I Titan's Tooth to clear the back lines, and then Effigy to double the Frostbite. At least I think I do. Yep, there we go. But it's not quite enough because Crucible Collector can't use any of its lifesteal. But an Antumbra Morsel and 1 hit on the Pyre, plus the Holdover Effigy are all that's needed to finish the job. So it's alright. Double Stack Frenzied Swarm is very strong even in base play, so I choose that. And then it's on to Ring 6. grab a dupe because I don't really need more unit upgrades. Obviously, Incant Gain Armor 1, which is what I finally filled the last slot with, is much, much weaker for this purpose than Large Stone. It does offer capacity issues, but I have not been having any trouble with running out of lifesteal stacks so far, so that's really the least of my worries, or at least it should be the least of my worries. Frostbite stack fell, so I can start using Effigy later. Void Binding, I don't want to Ember Drain myself out of being able to play Effigy. Depending on how long I have to tank with Morsel Master, the lifesteal could come in handy. So I choose to play out the Excavators, also for their attack boost. So now that we've finally got lifesteal up, we're going to take most of our health and then live on the Crucible Collector. And Morsel Excavators provide an even bigger source of lifesteal. Not that I really needed one. And I'm able to Offering Token a Titan's Tooth to get a little more Frostbite early on Fell, as well as some raw damage. Or no raw damage, apparently. Would drain here, and do. Although the sap will wear off by the time everything is said and done. I don't know enough about the patterns in this fight to count that on the fly, though, so I think it's a good precaution to take at minimum. And because of the rules of containment, I can Hoarfrost Effigy to double the Frostbite, and then some on Fell. And then she advances to the second floor, where she gets both incanted and doubled. Then up to the third, where the Crystalline Seeds gets to show its face. And Frostbite is doubled yet again for the final wave, which is no object. Boom. 2 phases, done. A Furnace Tap was on my wish list, and it's right there in the first slot for me. Then we have Remove and Dupe, which is generally a pretty strong choice. I begin to remove Shade Splitters after purging a single Frozen Lance. I purge a Gem Trove instead, despite the fact that I literally just got energy enough to play it. Not my smartest moment, I'll say that much. My dupe choice is a Titan's Tooth, since I have so many Offering Tokens. And I was looking for Sweep here, so I could put Sweep Trample into effect with my Umbra Stone, but that turned out not to happen, but that's okay. Multi-Strike Trample with the combined Furnace Tap and Umbra Stone is also quite strong. Here's a decent opener, get the 2 most important units out, and a Seeds, Crystalline Seeds consumed. We're leaking something because we immediately perish to all of these units, and that's not changed by playing out Morsels in front, so I need to reset this fight. It's my first reset of the run, so not too bad, at least not yet. And so the plan is, of course, to set up on a higher floor, specifically the second floor in this case. I Furnace Tap the wrong target. Definitely a mistake there, but I don't believe it bites me. Although I will say Multi-Strike is particularly bad with lifesteal, because it decreases the longevity of the stacks. Despite that, we're actually doing okay here, and the attack buffing morsels I just generated from the packed morsels are a pretty good beneficial side effect of spamming the Furnace Tap onto specifically Crucible Collector, and those rolls continue as every morsel I get from my second packed morsels also offers an attack buff. So inadvertently, this is working remarkably well. No need to play anything else there, and it's only living armor with a conduit in the back, but the conduit gets wiped with a Titan's Tooth, and then I can hit a Gem Trove for once in my entire life, and a Frenzied Swarm on living armor, giving it 1 stack of days when it comes up to the top. And in just a couple phases, living armor is taken down. This is definitely a more complicated strategy than it really should be for a speedrun like this. But it's hard not to have something like that when you are given like 3 packed morsels on open. Purges here are Shade Splitters because they cost 1, and I have enough Ember Drain that that's bad. And the dupe is a I don't remember what I duped here, and apparently I didn't know Furnace Tap was the choice. I'm going to say that was a bad choice in retrospect, given that both of them cost 1, so unless I draw both of them in the same hand, it's not very effective. Check the Merchant of Trinkets, can't really take Gauge, but I can take Sigiled Seaweed, and because of all the triggered effects on the enemies in this particular fight, I can get a lot of mileage out of it. The triggered specifically are the Darkwing's Harvest, gain 15 armor, and the Shadewing's Slay trigger, which heals them and increases their attack. Getting rid of both of those, even to a limited extent, would be awesome. I obviously can't play floor 1 because I just can't. There's just too much damage output coming in. I should Kindle first, and do. Umberstone puts Trample on Tethys, potentially allowing for more multiple Frostbite procs, but not in this particular turn. I play... What do I play? I drain that to ensure the safety of Crucible Collector. And now I'm getting offensive morsels, which is bad because I don't have the max health to break through a Shadewing chain attack and lifesteal my way to victory. Here, the best I can do is kill the Shadewings and stack Immortal Trade. My damage shields don't really stay up at all, even with the morsels. Lifesteal will not be the limiting factor here, so I choose to Immortal Trade, but you're noticing that we're leaking through a rather unholy number of enemies, non-boss enemies, to the top, and I have no real way, except for a couple things, Mind Collapse, specifically, of accessing them, so we're getting a little bit pressured, and while we may not lose necessarily, the time loss is substantial. Peril should have been targeted at Tethys, obviously. This is Relentless -1, so I'm now breathing a little more easily, especially once I see another Furnace Tap. But then I start realizing that I have nothing for Relentless. Because Seraph deals, like, 10 by 3 in this particular Covenant. In any Covenant, in fact. And my max HP is only 26, it is very unlikely that I can actually manage to survive even a single round of Relentless, which, as it turns out, is exactly what happens, and this particular setup deals a mere 55 damage to Seraph. That's a pretty clear reset, if I do say so myself. And reset I do. So, after a quick click of continue run, we're back into the fight. Second floor setup wasn't the problem. The problem was I chose not to Hoarfrost Effigy, but the third floor setup is generally just safer, and here is no exception. It'll allow me more time to build up important things. I should have kindled beforehand and then used Frenzied Swarm on a floor, but didn't do that. Here I'm going to Packed Morsels, obviously, then Glacial Seal, sacrificing the extra 2 morsels in order to get a better Frostbite setup, which I think is a decent choice. The Shadewings there has healed despite my best efforts with Sigiled Seaweed. And another Packed Morsels offers Damage Shield, which is just what I need. The Frontliner lives, but doesn't do much. Offering a Titan's Tooth and then offering another Titan's Tooth allows me to clear the deadly Shadewings out of the backline of the first 2 floors, and then Mind Collapse and Frostbite allows me to get the third, and we're still in decent shape as a result. I do once again Perils and Furnace Tap here, Space Prism, and then Mind Collapse aimed at the Shadewings on, I think, the bottom line? Nope, I don't Mind Collapse at all, because I don't want to hold it over, which is, while it makes some sense, is a bit dubious as well, because of just how important to this fight the Shadewings are. The combined Crystalline Seeds and Effigy is just begging to be played. Although the Crystalline Seas is probably begging to be played on the bottom floor in retrospect. But once the doubling starts, it does not stop. So I Perils of Production to get the energy to play Hoarfrost Effigy, and we're up to 300 Frostbite. And I get 2 more doublings between now and then. And despite the fact that Crucible Collector dies, I will make great use of them. I'm tempted to Frenzied Swarm, but I should resist that temptation. And Hoarfrost Effigy here. 714 is the new Frostbite number. But then I die. And I do make it in time to reset. But I know all I need to do is just change some limited amount of plays, including Kindling, in the proper order. So I'm not too worried about that yet. Plus, resetting gives me an opportunity to play a little faster, because I was definitely playing slowly. Play 3 Morsels, double Crystalline Seeds, the same opener as last time. My plays will be fixed later. So here, Kindle first, Umbra Stone, Morsel Master, Shade Splitter to get Antumbra Morsels early, which I hadn't done before, and then save some health with a Frenzied Swarm. Ancient Synergy this floor to kill the frontline enemy, and then hopefully have an exposed way to hit the Shade Wings coming up. And I am offered that in the form of Flash Freeze. With that, we're in pretty good shape, and I can Morsel Miner twice, which allows me the max health necessary to beat 1 round of Seraph's attacks, and then retaliate with Lifesteal, which is a very good thing to see. Offering Token once again wipes the floor with all the Shade Wings, which is absolutely lovely. And then Mind Collapse gets rid of the 3rd. And we're already in a good deal better shape. Once again, here I Furnace Tap Tethys with the Perils this time, remedying my mistake from earlier. I should have Energy Siphoned and then Mind Collapsed there, but it's not a huge deal because of rules of containment. I have holdover, so I can simply Mind Collapse again later. I have a Forgotten Name allows me to boost the magic power and Mind Collapse this Shade Wings, but I Hoarfrost Effigy first in order to be able to play both it and Furnace Tap in the same turn after the Mind Collapse. So we're already in a much stronger position, even more so than I honestly expected going into this fight, because I didn't notice that misplay last time. So now we're safe on the top floor this time. And then I shouldn't Mind Collapse that, and I know it, so Perils of Production, and then accidentally play Titan's Tooth instead of Effigy. That's bad. Then I do still get carried here, and you'll see why in just a second. I have enough max health on my Crucible Collector that Lifesteal can safely come into play, or not. I just have enough bodies in the way. That's not how I remember that going, honestly, but it certainly does the job. And I obtain a time of 16:13 before the ending cutscene, which adds 8 seconds. So my end time will be 16:21. That does, albeit only barely, beat both Never Nathaniel and Narninian. Narninian had a time of 16:38 on this seed, so that gives me 7 league points and puts me into a commanding position going into Game 5, which, spoilers, I did fine in, and that was enough to put me into the finals, which are going to be streamed today as kind of the capstone of my stream over at twitch.tv/Cinestream. Link in the description, once again. If you enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe. If not, please comment down below with how I can improve, and either way, have a good one. This has been